even if you are a smaller person, you can still generate a lot of force. And also, how's that for you? And,
and when you find your passion, it ignites you as a person. You just feel awesome. For some reason, Gary didn't want to do this video with me, so this is our friend. We're both not wearing gi pants, so I guess it's a party. Let's talk about pressure, all right? So first of all, we had one of our Jiu-Jitsu sisters. She has been going to class and she was rolling, and she is like, hey, you know, whenever I roll, I know what to do. She says she knows what to do. She knows in her mind what to do, but when she starts rolling, she just can't get her body to remember how to apply pressure, and her coach like gives her little adjustments, and she knows this, but when she's rolling, it just, you know, she wants to know, how do I train my mind to apply pressure when rolling? All right, so girl, here's what we're gonna do in this video. All right, I'm going to give you tips on how to train your mind, and then I'm gonna show you physically some little things that you can do when you're rolling to apply more pressure. So here we go. All right, so here's one tip that you can do next time you're about ready to roll. As a white belt, especially as a white belt, this is super helpful, because when you're rolling as a white belt, I remember when I was rolling as a white belt, you basically just get your ass beat for like the first couple of years. And it's hard to keep a sunny disposition when you're getting your ass beat every time when you're rolling. So one way to keep you going through this phase, one super helpful thing to do is to make a goal for your roll. That way, even if you spend the entire rounds getting submitted and getting your ass beat, you still feel accomplished leaving the mat, like you did something and you accomplished something because you worked towards a goal. So next time you are about ready to roll, make pressure your goal, and this is how you do this, because sometimes you can forget and it doesn't stick mentally. I like to give myself a mantra and like a mentality. So when I was the same way as you. When I was white belt, I was like, I need to get this pressure game down. And what I would do as a mantra would be, I would go on the mat and I would think to myself before I would roll, I would be like, looking at the person thinking like, this is my mental thought. I said to myself, I am going to put so much pressure on you. You are going to wish I would submit you and you could just tap out. Like, this is going to be so miserable for you, and I am going to enjoy watching your face as you try to hide the uncomfortable and like the crappy position that you're in, because in jiu-jitsu, nobody wants to tap from pressure. You know what I mean? Like, people are like just trying to withstand the most uncomfortable, heavy pressure. And so what this does for you is, I would even call it like soul crushing pressure. And it just, when something is like so explicit, it just sticks in your mind. So that's one very helpful thing. But I also have to warn you, okay? So if you have this energy of like, I'm going to apply so much pressure and like really make this roll, you have to be mindful that like that energy, like let's say you were starting to roll with me and you had that mentality and I felt that you were just trying to like smash me, I would be like, oh, Miss White Belt, you want to roll like that? Like that's what it would trigger in me, and I'm sure in a lot of other people rolling too. So when you go with that energy, just make sure that you communicate like, hey, like if let's say me and you were about ready to roll, and let's say like I was the white belt trying to work on pressure, I would be like, hey, I'm trying to, work on my top pressure, like during this roll, okay, is that okay with you? And they say okay, and then you start rolling, and then that way when you start applying pressure and you have that mentality going, they're happy for you and they're like, yay. Then when you would apply pressure on me, I would be like, yay, it's working, good job, or I would give you a tip. So that makes them try to root for your pressure, as opposed to if you didn't tell me anything and you just came at me with that type of energy, like the mat is like a mirror, okay? Like if you're rolling, people, I don't know, like people are like, oh, sometimes it's like I don't roll with people based off of, with my intensity based off of if they're, you know, a male, female, whatever. I mirror what they give me. So if a dude comes on the mat and he's like timid, I'm not going to go 100% because that's just being an asshole. So just be mindful that whatever energy you're putting out there, it gets mirrored. So if you go out there with the smash energy, you're gonna get the smash energy back. All right, so now in order for your brain to understand pressure, like you have to, understanding like the concept really helps, because when I first started, I didn't really understand like what, even though I had like an engineering degree, I really didn't understand what pressure meant in the context of Jiu-Jitsu, okay? So as you probably know, like pressure is defined by area. So if I have a larger area, that's gonna make the pressure dispersed versus a smaller area. So let's say I had a spear, okay? And I was throwing a spear at you. Which way would you want me to throw it? Like this? Or if I turned my fist 90 degrees and threw it at you like that with the spearhead pointing that way? Like that highlights the concept of, okay, if you have a smaller area, AKA the spearhead coming at you, it's a localized force, as opposed to if I just threw it with the handle like this and the spear facing that way, throwing it at you, it's not really gonna do much because the force is spread out over the length of the spear. So that same concept is true in Jiu-Jitsu, except of having a spearhead. Your spearhead is actually your body parts. So there's two parts to this. One, as a white belt, the number one mistake I see is white belts using their knees and supporting their weight on themselves instead of putting weight onto their partner. So it looks something like this. Like let's say I was, you know, in side control. Like you'll see white belts putting all of their weight on their knees and just kind of like going like this. And where's all my weight right now? Like all my weight is going through to the ground. None of it is going onto my opponent. But if I were to, let's say, be in this type of side control and scoop them up and start to use one of my spears, like for example, my shoulder, to spear into them, then that's a different story, right? So there's a couple of ways that you can apply pressure when you are, this is like the physical part of it, okay? So there's a couple of ways that you can apply pressure when you are rolling, and there's a common principle that you'll see throughout, okay? So one principle is having a spear, so that could be your shoulder, that could be your knee, so localizing the force and driving downward, and the other is a pulling force, okay? So for example, if I am in Kisakatami, judo side control, okay? So do you see all these angles? I have the far side underhook. I have their arm here, right? In order for me to apply pressure here, a white belt level of pressure would be my hips are on the ground, okay? If I want to increase the pressure onto my opponent, I need to get my ass off the ground, because that's gonna transfer the weight onto pillow head, all right? So you see how my butt's on the ground? So look, I'm lifting my butt off the ground. Basically, you could slide a sheet of paper underneath. And I'm driving my head down, and then from here, this is the pulling action, so I can pull at the same time. So this is what this looks like. And I'll show you a couple of clips of it live as well. All right? So that's one concept. So the principle of both a driving force using your shoulder is also applicable to your knee. So I'll show you it in another position. So for example, if I had knee on belly, I'm using my knee as a driving force. And if I wanted to apply a pulling force, I could underhook their knee and their head and pull up as I'm driving my knee down. That's not gonna make you a lot of friends, but if you're practicing pressure and you like told them beforehand, like, so you could see spear driving downward as I'm pulling up, okay? From another side control, if you get really, really tight and this is their neck, you have your hands clasped like this, you're pulling them in as you're taking your shoulder and driving down into their neck, into their throat. And you want to picture like squeezing them in and driving that shoulder right through their neck to the mat floor, okay? And then finally, when we're in mount, when you apply mount pressure, you can use the same principle of underhooking their legs to apply like oppositional forces to drive your hips in.
Your hips into them. And what this does is creates a lot of pressure on them. Even if you are a smaller person, you can still generate a lot of force. Mm-hmm. And also, how's that for you?
And then in addition to that, when you're on top in mount, in addition to underhooking their legs, another way that you can put your weight on them is to literally be a wet blanket. Okay, so I smother the people I roll with. Like I literally like Weekend at Bernie's, okay? Like they try to push and I'm just like dead weight. Have you ever tried to move a dead body before? Like that is hard. So just try to be like Weekend at Bernie's. Like you want to make it as difficult for them as possible. And a lot of times, like as a white belt, white belts will get nervous and get rigid. And if you're rigid, it's a lot easier to move a stiff plank board off of you than it is to move a Weekend at Bernie's type situation body off of you, okay? So to apply pressure from mount, okay, what are you gonna be? Here, pop quiz hot shot. All right, girl, what are you gonna be in mount? You're gonna be a sack. You're giving sack of potato energy. You're giving Weekend at Bernie's flopping energy, okay? From a side control, you want to be conscious of, okay, how much weight is pushing through the floor right now versus how much weight is pushing through my opponent, okay? And then thinking about something, maybe listen to a little David Bowie under pressure, driving to class to get yourself, amped up. All right, so thank you so much for watching. If you've watched all of this video, you should definitely subscribe because we're gonna be putting out even more useful stuff for you to enjoy. And yeah, so just remember, especially if you just started training or if you're a white belt, I feel you. When I first started training, it's very frustrating because, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, and when you are rolling, nothing's working at first, but keeping in mind, having this type of goal, this is a great goal. Having the goal of okay, I'm going to roll and I'm going to remember one thing about, if you can't remember what you're going to do before you step onto the mat, you're not going to remember during the roll. So before you step on the mat, just visualize, I am going to give this person soul crushing pressure, and I am going to do it by hugging them close when I'm in side control and driving my shoulder through their throat onto the mat. I am going to apply pressure from the top of mount by grapevine-ing their legs and driving my hips through their stomach into the floor, making diaphragm breathing extremely difficult. Knee on belly is a little bit, you know, I am going to spear my knee, you know, through their diaphragm while pulling on the back of their head and underhooking their knee and pulling that as well. So those are, it's the gentle art of Jiu-Jitsu. All right, so until next time, bye.
Thank you.